On his 43rd birthday, Prince William didn't just celebrate another year. He quietly reshaped the royal family itself. As the morning unfolded at Kensington Palace, everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Staff moved briskly yet respectfully through the corridors, and journalists refreshed their inboxes, waiting for the expected thank you message and a new royal portrait. But then, it happened. In just a few short sentences, Prince William sent a ripple through the royal family that left even palace insiders shocked to the core. With little warning, James, Earl of Wessex, and his sister, Lady Louise Windsor, were stripped of their courtesy titles. The question on everyone's mind was immediate. Why? Was this a bold, visionary step toward modernizing the monarchy? Or was it the first public glimpse of a quiet, simmering feud within the House of Windsor? Why target two of the most low-profile, least controversial members of the family? And more importantly, what does this reveal about the man who will one day wear the crown? Insider sources suggest there's much more to this story than meets the eye. And tonight, we're peeling back the curtain. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just the decision itself, but also the history, emotions, and strategy behind it, and what it means for the future of the royal family. Chapter 1: The Birthday That Changed Everything. June mornings in London have a certain charm. Soft light spilling across cobblestone streets, the faint buzz of tourists gathering outside Kensington Palace, and the quiet hum of royal staff preparing for another day steeped in tradition. On this particular June morning, though, something felt different. It was Prince William's 43rd birthday, and inside the palace, the usual rhythm of events played out. The staff ensured the floral arrangements were perfect. The PR team drafted the expected social media post, and photographers lingered outside, hoping to catch even a fleeting glimpse of the birthday prince. But behind the grand doors, the mood was anything but routine. According to insider sources, subtle signs had appeared days earlier. Meetings scheduled late into the night, changes to the daily agenda, and whispered conversations in corridors between William and senior aides. The feeling around the palace was that something significant was about to unfold, though none could guess what. But on that afternoon, the news broke. With no fanfare, no televised speech, and no advance warning to the public. A brief, formal statement was released. Effective immediately, James, Earl of Wessex, and Lady Louise Windsor would no longer use their courtesy titles. Just like that, two young royals, who had never courted scandal or public controversy, were stripped of titles that had been part of their identity since birth. The statement, signed off by King Charles, bore all the hallmarks of official protocol. But palace insiders alleged it was Prince William's decision, his strategy, his vision, his move. And in that moment, what had started as a quiet birthday morning became a turning point, not just for James and Louise, but for the royal family itself. Chapter 2: Why James and Louise? For many royal watchers, the question wasn't just about the decision. It was about the people who were affected by it. Why them? James and Louise have always been known as the quietest of Queen Elizabeth's grandchildren. They grew up far from the glare of cameras, their lives carefully shielded by their parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. While their cousins, William, Harry, Beatrice, and Eugenie, became regular fixtures in royal headlines, James and Louise moved through the world like whispers, seen only occasionally, spoken of rarely. James, now 17, and Louise, 21, were raised in a world that prioritized tradition and normalcy. At family weddings and national events, they carried themselves with quiet dignity. At home and at school, they were just two teenagers, trying to live as normally as their lineage would allow. Their parents insisted on it. Edward and Sophie, insiders say, were adamant from the beginning that their children would not carry the weight of royal titles if they didn't want to. Queen Elizabeth herself reportedly offered James and Louise the styles of prince and princess entitlements under royal protocol, but their parents declined. Instead, James grew up as Viscount Severn and later inherited the courtesy title Earl of Wessex when his father became Duke of Edinburgh. Louise simply went by Lady Louise Windsor. Neither of them courted attention. Louise became known for her love of horses, art, and history, often drawing comparisons to her grandmother for her composure and warmth. She reportedly grew especially close to Queen Elizabeth in her later years, spending quiet holidays at Balmoral and learning from her directly. James, younger and even more reserved, developed a reputation for being polite and unassuming. Though he inherited his father's courtesy title, he never sought the spotlight. And yet, it was precisely this low profile that made the decision so jarring. Why strip titles from two young people who had done nothing to disgrace the family? Insider sources suggest the answer is more nuanced than it seems. William, they say, views the titles as symbolic of an outdated monarchy, one where rank is bestowed automatically, regardless of service. By removing their titles now, he is allegedly sending a message. Titles will no longer be handed down like heirlooms to those without a defined role in serving the crown. But there's another layer here, one the public may not have fully appreciated. According to some contrary reports, William hasn't necessarily shut the door on James and Louise forever. Some palace aides are claiming that both siblings remain on what they call a reserve list. Royals who could, if they choose, step into public-facing roles in the future. Louise in particular has already shown signs of such potential. Currently at the University of St. Andrews, the same university where William met Kate, she's reportedly enrolled in the University Officers Training Corps, holding the rank of Officer Cadet. This little-known fact has drawn comparisons to her great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, who famously served as a mechanic during World War II. It's possible, perhaps even likely, that William sees this move not as exile, but as a pause. By removing the titles now, he gives James and Louise the freedom to decide their futures on their own terms, without the weight of royal expectation. Which begs the question, which of these reports is organic, and which one is cooked? Chapter 3. William's Vision, a Modern Monarchy. To understand why Prince William chose to make such a bold move on his birthday, you have to understand the vision that's been quietly driving him for years. William has never been content to simply wait for the crown. Those close to him say he's been watching and learning his entire life. Watching his parents' turbulent marriage play out in tabloids. Watching the British press both adore and destroy his mother. Watching his brother step away from royal life entirely. And through it all, William has been quietly preparing for his turn, not just to inherit the crown, but to reshape it. According to palace insiders, William believes that the monarchy's survival depends on two things: relevance and respect. And that means slimming it down. The idea isn't new. In fact, it echoes a century-old precedent. During World War I, King George V famously cut the number of royals entitled to titles and funding, stripping German-sounding names and modernizing the family's image during a time of national crisis. William seems to be channeling that same pragmatic spirit. He has reportedly told advisors that the monarchy should feel less like an outdated institution and more like a focused team. Gone are the days of endless cousins standing on balconies or drawing from public funds while contributing little in return. Instead, William allegedly envisions a monarchy with fewer, more active members, each one with a defined role and visible service to the nation. And this vision isn't just a theory. He's already putting it into action. After his grandmother's passing and his father's ascension to the throne, William quietly began consolidating power behind the scenes. Insider sources speak of a shadow court, a small, savvy group of advisors and strategists who have helped William sharpen his message, streamline operations, and act as the de facto leader of the family as King Charles faces his own health challenges. This shadow court is made up of younger, more modern voices, communications experts, consultants, and trusted aides who reportedly understand the delicate balance of tradition and modernity better than many of the old guard. One senior palace aide allegedly described it this way: "He doesn't just attend meetings anymore, he runs them." William has already cut back on unnecessary public events, reduced spending on certain ceremonial functions, and reviewed who attends official family occasions. The decision to remove James and Louise's titles, then, fits neatly into this broader strategy. It sends a clear signal that titles are not simply family heirlooms, but tools that must be earned, used, and justified in the eyes of the public. And it also addresses a growing problem: the gaps left by Prince Harry and Prince Andrew. With two former working royals no longer in the fold, William needs a tighter, more effective team, not a sprawling list of names with no purpose. It's a bold, even ruthless vision, one that risks alienating parts of the family, but may ultimately strengthen the monarchy's connection to the public. Because, for William, it seems clear, loyalty to the crown isn't about clinging to outdated traditions. It's about proving the monarchy still has a place in Britain's future. Chapter 4: Sophie's Quiet Heartbreak. Amid all the headlines, one figure stood silently in the background, but insiders say her feelings were impossible to miss. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. To the public, Sophie has always been the model royal. Once a successful PR executive, she married Prince Edward and gradually became one of Queen Elizabeth's most trusted confidants. She learned to move gracefully through the royal world, visible but never flashy, supportive but never political. Her devotion to the late Queen was legendary. The two women reportedly spent countless weekends together at Windsor Castle, taking long walks and sharing quiet moments away from the pressures of the crown. Some palace staff even referred to Sophie as the Queen's second daughter. Such was their bond. That same devotion carried over to her children. From the beginning, Sophie and Edward made it clear they wanted James and Louise to have a normal upbringing. They declined the HRH styles of prince and princess that protocol allowed, instead opting for courtesy titles that left the door open for their children to decide their futures. Sophie once mentioned, "We try to bring them up with the understanding that they are very likely to have to work for a living." To her, that balance, giving them royal dignity but ordinary lives, was something she fought hard for. So when the announcement came on William's birthday, effectively removing even the modest titles her children carried, insiders say she was devastated. Publicly, she displayed her usual composure. No statements, no comment, no visible reaction. But according to someone close to the family, Sophie was crushed, blindsided even. The choice that she and Edward had carefully preserved for their children, the right to choose their level of involvement when they were ready, had been taken out of their hands entirely. And it wasn't just about titles. For Sophie, it symbolized a shift in the royal family itself. The family she had once been so close to. The one she helped hold together after Diana's death. The one she'd served tirelessly for decades, now seemed to be moving in a direction she no longer recognized. In a way, Sophie's quiet heartbreak embodied what so many feel about the royal family's evolution. Progress comes at a cost. And sometimes, that cost is borne silently by those who love it most. Chapter 5: William and Edward's Silent Divide. On the surface, there's no feud. Edward and William have never exchanged harsh words in public. No bitter glances on the balcony. No leaked emails or late-night phone calls fueling tabloid headlines. But behind the walls of the palace, insiders say, a quiet divide has been growing. For decades, Edward was the dependable one. As the youngest of Queen Elizabeth's children, he stayed loyal, dutiful, and scandal-free. He waited patiently, more than 20 years, for the title of Duke of Edinburgh, a title his mother had reportedly promised him and that his father, Prince Philip, deeply cherished. When he finally received it, less than 2 years ago, it seemed like a moment of quiet triumph, a recognition of his lifelong service and loyalty to the family. But that triumph was short-lived. He hadn't even been the Duke of Edinburgh for 2 years, and his son James had already lost the very title, Earl of Wessex, that came with it. Many believe it feels like a contradiction of the crown's values. Edward had spent decades carrying out royal duties without complaint, supporting his mother in her later years, and helping his father maintain the family's dignity through turbulent times. And yet, his children were sidelined without warning. Observers have noted that William and Edward embody two different visions of the monarchy. Edward represents tradition, a family first, ceremonial institution where even the quieter royals have a place at the table. William, meanwhile, represents the future, streamlined, strategic, and efficient. In his view, loyalty to the crown is measured by service to the public, not family ties alone. Insider sources allege that Edward was deeply disappointed by the decision, though he showed no outward defiance. One aide reportedly described the atmosphere after the announcement as frosty but formal. Edward has continued to attend events, support charities, and fulfill his duties, but insiders say he now keeps a noticeable distance from William. It's not war, but it's not warmth either. And as William's influence grows, Edward, the Queen's youngest son, has finally realized that the monarchy he dedicated his life to has become something very different from the one he signed up for. Chapter 6: Public and Media Reactions. If Prince William hoped his decision would quietly modernize the monarchy, the reaction it sparked proved otherwise. Within hours of the announcement, the rumor was everywhere, spreading like a plague on gossip tabloids. At first, many in the public were simply confused. James and Louise had never been controversial figures. If anything, they were admired precisely because they'd stayed out of the spotlight, quietly embodying the dignity people expect from the royal family. But as the news sank in, opinions began to polarize. Among younger Britons, particularly those under 35, the move was applauded. It's no longer news that recent polls show William's immense popularity among Gen Z and millennials. So many of them obviously support his move for a leaner monarchy. They argued that royal titles should reflect service, not birthright. For them, the idea of James and Louise living off royal privilege without carrying out duties felt outdated and even unfair to taxpayers. But older generations, those who grew up watching the royal family as a symbol of continuity, were less convinced. To them, the move felt cold, almost cruel. Many expressed sympathy for Sophie, who was seen as one of the most relatable and hard-working royals. Now, here's the interesting part. The rumors, despite their intensity, didn't make it to the mainstream. The media powerhouses allegedly seized on the drama. Rather than scrutinize it, they avoided the news completely. From BBC to Daily Mail, no one wrote one article about the gossip. Supporters continue to praise William as a strong, decisive leader willing to make hard choices to keep the monarchy relevant. Critics accused him of throwing his cousins under the bus to score points with younger voters. One commenter summed up the tension perfectly. "He's not wrong, but he's not right either. There should be a way to modernize without breaking hearts." Through it all, Kensington Palace maintained silence. But behind the scenes, the palace PR team allegedly scrambled to contain the fallout. It was clear this was no ordinary birthday announcement. William had started a conversation that Britain, and perhaps even the royal family itself, wasn't quite ready to have. Chapter 7. What the Future Holds. The shock of the announcement may have passed, but its consequences are just beginning to unfold. For James and Louise, the path forward is now more uncertain than ever. Without courtesy titles, they technically become even more private citizens, free to pursue careers, relationships, and lives without the weight of royal expectations. Some view this as a blessing. Louise, for example, is already carving her own path at university. She's studying English literature, living her life as she sees fit. And while she declined to take the title of princess at 18, saying she wanted a normal life, observers believe she may still step into public service when the monarchy needs her. One royal source allegedly noted, "Louise is one to watch." William knows that. James, at just 17, faces his own crossroads. Though even more reserved than his sister, he now finds himself navigating a royal world that no longer fully claims him. Having grown up as the Earl of Wessex, he reportedly feels disoriented, no longer carrying a title, yet still unmistakably royal. But the story doesn't end with them. This move has raised questions about others in the extended family. Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, daughters of Prince Andrew, still hold their titles, for now. Their children, too, may face similar scrutiny as William continues to refine the monarchy's image. According to palace insiders, this wasn't a one-time decision, but part of a broader strategy. The plan seems clear. Only those actively serving the crown, and directly in line with it, will remain prominently titled and publicly funded. And there's another reason this moment matters. The shadow of Harry and Andrew still looms large. With those two effectively removed from frontline royal duties, William's streamlined team must now carry even more weight with fewer people. William allegedly sees the next generation, his own children, plus select reserve royals like Louise, as his insurance policy. For now, though, the royal family stands at a delicate intersection, tradition on one side, progress on the other. Whether William's vision strengthens or fractures the monarchy remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the meaning of royalty is changing, and so is the future of the House of Windsor. As one royal historian put it, William has drawn a line. Whether the family follows remains to be seen. And so, what began as a quiet summer morning at Kensington Palace became something much bigger. A statement of intent from a future king who is no longer content to simply wait his turn.
At 43, Prince William shocked everyone by changing titles inside the royal family, and in doing so, revealed far more than just a strategic move. He showed us a glimpse of the monarchy he intends to lead. Smaller, sharper, and, he hopes, stronger. For James and Louise, the story is far from over. Stripped of their titles, but not of their heritage, they now stand at a crossroads. Will Louise's quiet sense of duty, already reflected in her military training, bring her back into the royal fold? Will James, still just a teenager, find a place for himself in a family that seems to be shrinking around him? For Sophie and Edward, the decision carries a quiet heartbreak.
a reminder that no amount of loyalty guarantees you a say in the future. And for William, it's another step in a delicate dance between tradition and progress, between honoring the past and preparing for the future. The British monarchy has always adapted to survive, but rarely has the change felt so personal or so public.